Hello, it's Adedoyin Jaiyesimi here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the third module in the Unpacking Corporate Communications Bite-Sized Comms course. In this comms course, I am teaching on the fundamentals of the corporate communications function. In the last video or in the last module, we looked at the core skills for corporate communicators. And if you haven't watched that and the first module, please do. But this third module is all about best practices in corporate communications that ties together the things and the ideas that were shared in the first two modules. So let's get into it. What are some of the best practices to adopt in your role as a corporate communicator within any organization? Number one, no surprises there if you've watched the first two modules, is align communications closely with business strategy. And that's really one, it's foundational, it's pivotal to success. And I'm repeating and reiterating it because I've had the opportunity to be brought in to review communication strategy, plans, all of those things, and the misalignment. Sometimes I'm like, why are you going in this direction? And because because I was like, how does this tie into what your organization wants to do? Why would you suggest this? And I realized there's just that misalignment. And once there's a misalignment, it's going to be very, very difficult for your senior leaders to see the value of the work that you're doing, because you're not going to be able to deliver results in that way. So make sure that communications closely aligns with business strategy. And what that means is that you should be attending strategy sessions, leadership meetings to understand the corporate direction. Now, I understand that for a number of you are operating in a context where they bring comms at the end, or they just inform comms. But I hope that with this knowledge that you are gaining, you can begin to advocate that, hey, guys, I need to be in the room. And if you are not in the room, you need to be going to the people that are in the room to say, what was discussed? Tell me the high key points. And so that it informs your work. And then as you are delivering results, you keep emphasizing why you need to be in the room. Don't stay quiet. Don't say, they did not call me. No, you have to really. And I know, yes, I've had this conversation. Why is it that we always have to prove relevance? If the status quo is that people do not understand the importance, surely some work has to be done to shift it. And who is going to do that work? So if you're not going to be prepared to do the work, then that means you're going to continue in that status quo. And my question to you is why? So go with this mindset of, I need information. I need to know what is happening in those meetings. I need to get the direction, the priorities. Have questions for your senior leaders. 2 questions, because their time is always busy. Let them see that this person is really, really thinking from a business perspective, not just a communication perspective. Next thing is build and maintain strong media and stakeholder relationships. You have to engage your stakeholders proactively. Again, you are the custodian of trust. So you have to build these relationships. Now, because of the way different organizations operates, obviously this is not a one size fits all things, right? You have to really go back and think about the context of your organization. But I've engaged with organizations where communications doesn't have oversight, and it's not even possible, to be very honest, depending on how big your organization is, to have foresight or oversight of all the critical relationships. Like supply chain, you may never interface with the supply chain people, but you really need to be able to know, okay, what's going on in that part? Do they have the information? Which is why empowering them with toolkits, which we spoke about in module 2, empowering the different departments with toolkits to help them make sure that there's no friction in communication, then becomes very, very useful. So you can use briefings, courtesy visit, updates, listening sessions. Doesn't have to be you. Might be the CEO, might be the mid-level managers. But when they go out for some of these visits, for example, you need to know what happened, what was said, documents, and you have to be documenting some of these things because it's important. What commitments did we make in the factory? Have we done it? 3 months later, 1 year later, we've not done it, and they are going on strike. All of those things, that's your data gathering process. And then you begin to follow, right? All of these things are needed to maintain goodwill. Also, develop an active relationship map of key journalists, regulators, partners, and influencers. Something I'm going to say that is very important as a best practice: documentation. I spent a good part of last year working with some comms teams to develop documentation, structure that is documented, Policies documented, operating manuals documented. You need to have it documented. Let me ask you a question. Your stakeholder list, your stakeholder map, is it documented? Do you have, if you have 10 stakeholders in your organization, is it, you have a document that you can send to me now and say, Adedoyin, in this document, needs, priorities, know, feel, do, and quality or the history of the relationship and present state of this relationship is there, and I see it in one document. If your answer is no, you have work to do. These are the things that enable you to succeed in your work. And you see, I go into this level of detail so that you first of all can realize, hey, the work that you're doing is very important. And then number two, you can then begin to advocate for more resources that you need. If you're the only person, you cannot continue to be the only person. Begin to advocate for the hands that you need by showing them that, hey, this is, you're showing workings, as we will say in Nigeria. But because a lot of times we're operating from our head, we're operating from, how I'm feeling, the vibes, the creativity, it's not documented. So they think anybody can do your job, which is a total lie. You can see I'm very passionate about this topic. But what I really want by the end of this course is that you are informed and you are equipped to either go and start implementing, or for some of you that may need further knowledge. So some of you, some of these things I'm saying is totally new to you. You need to gain deeper knowledge in some of these things, and so that you are armed with the information, knowledge, and tools to deliver and do great work within your organization, so that you build your internal credibility and reputation and get the respect that communications deserves. But it comes with the knowledge, it comes with the results that we're able to deliver, it comes with the insights that we bring to the table. So it's not just about, oh, I need a seat at the table. What exactly are you going to do with that seat at the table? Number three, I'd already started touching on it. Establish clear governance processes and standards. You have a standard operating manual, an SOP. How do we operate as a team? If somebody needs to go or do an event, how many days in advance do they need to tell us as communications? What is the process? How do we brief our CEOs and senior leaders? What is our messaging framework? What do people say? In fact, this thing, you need to have a messaging document, and I would actually just show you in a bit one that we created for the Comms Avenue, because you have to equip people with the things that they need. Because remember, consistency, you are the custodian. You're not going to be there with them, but you have to equip them, train them so that they're saying the right things, so that they don't can say something that will cause an issue that you will now have to come and deal with. So what are your content approval procedures, crisis response, stakeholder management? You need to be able to ensure that messaging is consistent throughout. This is so important. Brand guidelines. Do you know there are organizations, there is no brand guideline. Everybody is doing what they want to do. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. Then you have to anticipate issues before they escalate. This is an entire discipline on its own. If you don't know anything about issues management, find books. You can do the course. It's on Seller that I have. Watch it. Just upskill in the area of issues management. And with that, you have to proactively monitor issues as they arise, called environmental scanning, track social media, audience sentiment, stakeholder concerns, all of these things documented. Because if you don't document it, you don't even know that, oh, this happened. And then you will also be able to see trends that, oh, January or March is coming, union may likely, because we've seen a trend of them, getting agitated in March, for example. If you're not documenting, you're not going to see the trends. Maintain an internal issues register and review it weekly. Again, if you don't know what issues register is, please go and learn it. Issues register is a document where you write down the issues that begin to come up. What was the issue? How was it resolved? What was the issue? What is the state of the issue? Is it green? Is it amber? Is it red? It's color coded in that way to know the severity of the issues and how it was resolved. Schedule early intervention before issues become crisis. If you are good at issues management, it will reduce crisis, because crises they fall into two buckets, or maybe three. You have crises that come from what is called act of God, the unforeseen. So a plane crashes. Now, that plane crashing, will not be an act of God if this organization has a reputation for poor maintenance, poor denim. But typically you expect that if it's an organization that they've had a almost perfect safety record, and then maybe environmental factors, for example, causes the plane crash. Those happen, or that's one, or environmental things, so flooding, snow, wind, that those things are unforeseen. But they are things that they are operational issues and risks that then they were not handled well. Potential for a fire in the warehouse, we didn't do the right things, then it happens, crisis. And then there is the ones that, because we did not manage issues, emerging issues properly, they then escalates into a crisis. So issues management is very, very critical to know. The next is, and I've touched on it a number of times, use data and analytics to guide decisions. See, your data gathering has to be on steroids this year, whether it's your email marketing tool, intranet, social media, media monitoring. You have to invest in some of these tools, help you to review sentiment, reach engagement, behavioral outcomes, not just outputs. You have to review all of those things. It's not about, oh, we did this number of events, we put this on the website, we spoke here. And I will show you in the case study that we will look at. Very, very important. The data you will get. Oh my God. Number 6, position corporate communication as a strategic partner, because truly that's where corporate communications belongs. So you share insight. Don't wait for them to ask. Have it on comms this week, something like that, where you're sharing what's happening, what's the market saying, what are the stakeholders saying, what are things to pay attention to, what, just put it there every week or every 2 weeks, right? Cover media analysis, sentiment, potential risk. Sit at the table where decisions are made, not just where messages are approved. But you can't enter those places by force. You enter there because they can see that there's value you're bringing to the table. And so you begin to show return on investment, which is ROI, by linking communication impact to business outcomes, trust, revenue, advocacy, risk reduction, employee engagement. And you have the power to be able to do that as a corporate communicator. That's literally how powerful this function is. But we haven't really harnessed the fullness of this power, which is one of the reasons why I'm really taking you through the fundamentals, so that I open your mind to different possibilities on how you can begin to function at a much higher level in your role. So before I go into the case study for today, let me show you the messaging documents that we created for the Comms Avenue, and you can replicate it or create something similar. But why I want to show you is that you need to have things documented. You need to create your own. So take the existing frameworks and create your own internal templates that you will use to educate your internal audiences. Okay, so I want to show you TCA's, or part of TCA's corporate messaging manual. Because of the kind of work that I do, very, very confidential and highly customized, it's very difficult for me to show templates that I've developed for clients because I do it from scratch. I built it from scratch for the Comms Avenue. But at least because this is the Comms Avenue's own, it's easy for me to show you or show it to you. You need to be having things like this internally if you do not have. And so this is the content of the manual. It's about 8 pages long, but I really want to show you one particular page. And so it documents our story, who we are, our vision and our mission, our core values, what we do, how we do it, why we do what we do, what we're aiming to achieve. So everyone that comes into this team has to really familiarize themselves with this document, because this is almost like this is the playbook that we're operating from in terms of our brand, our essence, and what we're doing. So we have a breakdown of our audiences, we have key facts around our work, and then we have a messaging framework. This messaging framework ties all of these things together into a one pager. So if somebody is going somewhere, we're saying the same things. Sometimes some companies don't talk about their impact. Somebody will say, oh, we've reached 1,000 people. Another will say 2,000 people. Then you quote another place that's quoted something different. That's misalignment. Things like this help to create harmony. So this is what our messaging framework looks like. Like I said, it condenses the entire thing, the document, into one. And this is how you need to be thinking about it. When you develop a communications plan and a strategy document that's about 15, 30 pages, you need to be able to distill it in 1 or 2 pages and being able to create some sort of strategy house or visual framework really helps you to communicate the key points. And these are the things that you really should be learning. That's what I do for my clients when I come in to consult with their comms teams. How do we make sure that you are communicating what you're doing effectively? How do you make sure that you are creating toolkits and manuals and processes and documentation that allows people to implement with ease? And so this messaging framework is just a one pager that someone can take. This is our vision. This is our mission, clearly stated out in the website and all other branded assets. Key message. Key message is very important. Now, the goal of a key message is not for the person to regurgitate it word for word 100%, but to be able to understand the language and the key information that needs to be communicated about the organization. You can see here, the Comms Avenue is a mission-driven professional community. So nobody within our system can go out and say the Comms Avenue is a PR agency. We are not a PR agency, right? Because we have the messaging. We work collaboratively, closing knowledge and skill gaps. So whenever you hear anybody from TCA speaking, you should be hearing about closing the knowledge and skill gaps. You should be hearing about empowering young communications professionals. And if you've interacted with me for so long, you know that that's the language, the terminologies that I use. And that's what a key message is. While it's okay for the spokesperson to be able to cram it, they must be able to deliver it in a way that's fluid. So I more particularly emphasize on what are the key words that you need to keep saying within the key message that resonates with who we are so that you deliver it. And so you can see here who we are. This defines Pan-African capacity building and networking platform for communications professionals. Everyone should be able to say that is easy. This is what we do: equip and empower young African communications professionals to achieve communication excellence and consistently deliver strategic results. That doesn't have to be delivered word for word, but equip and empower young African communications professionals. That needs to come through. Helping them achieve strategic results, communication excellence, that needs to come through. How we do it: we have a collaborative approach that needs to come through in the communications. How do we do that? Training, mentorship, resources. Again, so you can see how this thing just helps everybody to communicate in a unified manner. What is our impact? We deliberately didn't put numbers in this because our numbers at the time was changing, but you can decide you want to put numbers. The only thing with numbers, it keeps changing. So what it means is that you need to update it. So what you will do is have another documentation that speaks to our numbers. And then you can be updating that so that this framework, except if something significant or fundamental changes about the brand, you're not changing it. And then we have here why we do it. So this is what our messaging framework looks like. If you don't have one for your organization, I advise and I suggest that you should create one. Okay, so I hope that review of the messaging framework was useful for you to see. Like I said before, I have many of such templates I've created for different communications teams internally, and the effects in their work has been really different. I wish I could show you some of them, but like I said, they're highly customized and tailored to that particular organization. But be thinking along those lines to create your structure. Let me go back. See your structure, SOPs, policies, processes. Please document it. Toolkits internally. Please document it. Your stakeholder mapping, all of those great stuff. All right, so let's look at this case study of Unilever, right? Because we've spoken about the best practices, and I don't want this to be abstract. While this is not a full-blown training, I still want you to be able to see these things that we have shared in practice. And I think that Unilever is an organization that truly embodies communication best practice. I've known of Unilever for longest of time, but it wasn't until I went to business school, i.e. business school, in our sustainability model, it was one of the case studies, and just really seeing the cohesive way in which they communicate, how strategy translates into their communications, their messaging, how they engage. I just thought it was really beautiful. And as of last year, they merged communications, sustainability, and corporate affairs into one unit. So making it a more comprehensive function, because in a lot of organizations, those functions are separate. So one person having oversight, that's a big portfolio. But globally, Unilever has over 200 communications people working in his organization, so they are not playing. So I just thought, okay, this would be a nice example. But then obviously this is a global multinational. You maybe in your own corner, maybe you're in Kenya, you're in Zimbabwe, like, hey, my organization is not thinking like that, but we're thinking best practices here, right? So it's good to know the best practices, and then you then contextualize it for your own unique scenario and context. So one thing that is really clear about Unilever is that they view communications as a driver of commercial outcomes and organizational behavior. And it is very, very evident in the way and the consistency and the cohesiveness in which they communicate. And so their communications and corporate affairs team organizes around three objectives. One, to shape and protect Unilever's reputation. Remember, first module when we're talking about the importance and the why of corporate communications, this is really essential, shaping and protecting that reputation as a high performing sustainable business globally. That sustainability is at the core of the strategy of Unilever, and it's also at the core of how they communicate, delivering growth and savings through corporate affairs and policy advocacy. So they know that we're not just communicating, but then we're also embodying or enabling growth for the organization. So the comms people in Unilever are not just sending out messaging or delivering audience. They know that it has to tie to growth and savings for the organization, and they do that through their corporate affairs, policy advocacy, just influencing policy, setting the agenda on policy conversations that have to do with climate sustainability. And they did it when, if you remember a few years ago, that this conversation about sweatshops, so fashion brands, for example, they go to Vietnam or these low-income countries where the working condition is terrible, they're paid terrible, and then they export it to Europe and they're selling it for this high price. So it was this big global supply chain issue, human rights issue, and Unilever, what they did was they became a champion within their industry to stop some of those practices for their own industry as well. So they've done this consistently over the years, so it doesn't even feel like greenwashing. It is tied to the essence, and that's something that I really want to highlight, that a lot of these things you will realize that communications cannot do it alone. If you have a culture that is opposed to what it is that you're communicating, that culture problem has to be fixed. If we don't embody who we say we are, then there's only little that communications can do. And this is why you must be able to spot it and you must be able to flag it. Sometimes I come as an external consultant and I do a communications audit or I do a brand audit, and my recommendation is, please go and get a people and culture person. You have a culture problem. You've not even defined the culture, or this culture is opposed to the things that you say that you are. Say do gap. It's so wild. But anyway, number 3, embedding strategy and performance culture throughout the organization. So it's based, how they communicate is based on these 3 things, and their results are based on achieving these 3 critical things. And you can see how it ties into business strategy. And that cohesion is so beautiful. And so in executing their communications, what the Unilever communications team has done is they've based it on 3 pillars: media relations and thought leadership. They want to be leading on conversations on sustainability. And so they selectively engage the media. It's not that, oh, press release, just send it out, push it. No, very strategic about the platforms that they engage with. They prioritize original sources and authoritative platforms. Very selective, transparency first approach to reporting. When they miss it, there's a way that they take ownership even in the media, and it's really exemplary in the way they communicate. And then they have their own distributed network of regional and brand specific media specialists. So they have the journalists that they focus on, or platforms they focus on, and they also have their media specialists both on a regional and brand specific, because that they have a lot of brands. Very fantastic. Crisis management and reputation protection. What they do, they have a comprehensive, as you can see there, comprehensive crisis management framework. And then obviously there's a crisis communications plan that they will have that allows for swift action. And so what this means is that they'll be having frequent crisis drills. If this happens, how do we respond? What do we need to activate? If somebody dies using our product, how do we respond? All of those things. And you'll be like, it's true, because those are potential. Nobody prays for bad things to happen, but they do happen. Do we do an immediate product recall? If those things, and again, you don't prepare for crisis when a crisis starts. You have to be able to anticipate it. So they have an internal first approach that ensures employees understand company position before external stakeholders. This thing, do you know how many organizations that their employees, they find out about things in the media? So bad. If your organization is one of such organizations, please go to your senior leaders and say, this year we must change. It's not good. Internal people should know. Now, sometimes you have to strike a balance, because sometimes you can share internally first and people internal leak to the external, that then shakes stakeholder confidence. So corporate communications now needs to develop a coordinated way that as you are sharing internally, it is being activated externally, so there is no leaks. So you can see how, whenever I talk about critical thinking, is this kind of place that is needed. So if you're in that kind of organization where this issue or this thing we're communicating is very sensitive, we have investors, it can shake market confidence, you need to mention it to the employees, but you also need to keep the investors and the external investment market informed. You have to be able to know how to coordinate the release of that information. It doesn't fight every battle. Not every, if I see an organization, they're always fighting, always fighting. I'm just like, why? Why aren't we strategic about the things that we are, defending online? Because you're just wasting resources. Next is policy advocacy and stakeholder engagement. So I mentioned about merging comms with sustainability. So, I mean, there are different conversations about, is this a great idea? Is this not a great idea? But they've seen their trajectory, where they want to go, and they feel like it works. See, this engagement is active in policy dialogues with government, NGOs, industry associations, internal bodies, and they proactively shape conversations around issues. So they're not passive about the things that are core to them, and it shows in the way that they communicate. So how do they measure their communications? When evaluating influencer campaigns, and another thing that I should say before I look into this is that they went from a traditional company speaking to outside voices speaking. So they engage a lot of influencers. So they find influencers that very, very strategic about their influencer management. Or influencer engagement. They find influencers that connect with the target audience, and they get them to create the content, but they shape. It's almost a co-creation process in alignment with their values and all. But those people do the communicating that attracts the audience that they want. So if you go on Unilever Global's website, for example, you see this video. So it's very dynamic. So whichever segment of the stakeholder that you're in, you will see something for yourself. They're communicating to you, but not from that corporate standpoint. And it's like a decentralized communication. Not everybody can do that, but they're doing it really well. So how do they evaluate? So influencer campaigns, they're tracking conversion metrics, sales leads, customer acquisition costs. I was training some people some time ago, and then I just asked the question, okay, you have engaged this influencer. How did it impact on sales? What was the effect? And nobody could really tell me anything tangible. And I was like, what? You spent this amount of money on this influencer and you don't know if it made a difference in the sales volume and the sales lift. That's very problematic to me, because how are you going to show ROI? Second thing is success metric for influencer campaigns, sign-ups and downloads and sales. You really, really have to be tracking these things. And so if you have an influencer campaign, if you give a particular influencer a unique code, that people use that unique code before they purchase or before they access a particular thing, then you can track, okay, X number of people use the codes from this influencer, then you can begin to track. Not that you carry all the influencers, you don't know who brought what volume, you don't know who was active, you don't, that's, as in, my head is paining me, but it's okay. We're all learning. So you have to be able to track these things, right? And they are trackable. It's just you knowing what you want to measure and putting the measures in place to be able to track it. For corporate reputation work, they monitor trust scores, brand power indices, stakeholder perception studies, and these feed into commercial metrics. They have money to spend on measurement, because trust, if any of these things, trust scores, brand power indices, stakeholder perception studies, that's now proper like measurement. It can get a bit technical, right? And then the question for them isn't just, do stakeholders view us favorably, but does favorable perception translate into purchase intent, partnership opportunities, or regulatory good? This thing is so powerful. That's the problem. When we go and tell them that, we have 10,000 followers now, we grew by 5,000. It's not that those things matter. That's why I was like, I don't believe in vanity metrics, because they are important metrics. But the problem is stopping there. We have 10,000 followers, and so what? We have 10,000 followers. What does it translate to? Let's read it again. The question isn't just, do stakeholders view us favorably, but does favorable perception translate into purchase intent, partnership opportunities, regulatory goodwill? I hope you realize that purchase intent is not actual purchase. I can intend to purchase something and not actually purchase it. But the fact that they have signaled an intent by virtue of the work that you're doing. That's a key metric. Do you see it now? So these things are very important in how we go and report. So it is up to sales to close this intent. I have developed, it's called leads. I have developed the intent. I have developed the leads. Hey, sales, go and close. So when sales closes, I can tell you what I contributed to that figure that sales are claiming that they sold or closed. The problem is because we are not tracking. They now come and say, oh, they sold and they made $100 million. Oh, sales, fantastic. Come and tell us what you brought to the table. Combs is just looking at, hey, God. But Combs did stuff that brought in the sales, but Combs did not track. Do you see the problem here? But anyway, that is how Unilever measures. So what are some of the takeaways from this case study? One, they have strong brand reputation. And that's why if you go to a new country and you see a product by Unilever, from your country, like a brand that you're familiar with. So in Nigeria, for example, there's Ariel, and I'm looking for washing detergent, and I go to a country and I don't know the brands and I see Ariel, I'm very likely to pick up that Ariel. Brand reputation. They've built a purpose-driven brand architecture with a strong core narrative. It's very strong. Whatever channel, whether it's their website, social media, whichever channel, that strong core message that's built around sustainability is very, very clear. And it's clear in the terminologies they use, the words that they use. If you listen to their CEO speak or any senior management, it's consistent, right? That's very cohesive. There's a consistent link between corporate purpose and brand messaging. It's very clear. You just watch a few videos from them. There's integrated stakeholder communication across its supply chain. You know, I spoke about this relationship management thing, that across the supply chain, you may not have a hand over or oversight of that relationship, but you should be able to supply communication inputs that helps in managing those relationships and be able to get information on how those relationships are going, and then align brand identity with corporate behavior. What this means is that what they stand for as Unilever, they behave like that internally from the head to the tail. So there is no perception or say-do gap. There is no whitewashing or greenwashing. It's consistent, it's aligned. And that's a whole, see, that this thing is a big problem. You see, this last point is a big problem for a lot of organizations, and that's where they get it wrong. So now that we have looked at best practices, best case scenario, this is how to do it. Let's look at the challenges, and let's be real. This is ideal, but this is not always what operates. So what are the challenges faced by corporate communicators? One, limited internal buy-in and understanding of the communications function, and that's still a reality for a lot of people, that whether it's senior leaders or even people in other departments, they have a very skewed understanding of communications. They have a skewed understanding of what communications can do and deliver. And that means that getting buy-in is difficult. It now affects the second point, which is under-resourcing. Budget for comms. You're like, what's happening here? You know, at the end of last year, there was one organization that, you know, they had wanted to bring me on board for something, and they were complaining. And the end of the year, you will see the party. I said, oh wow, you have money to blow on this lavish party, but you could not do this communication activity. I just thought, wow. So the truth is that they value the party more. People put money where they value. It means that something needs to change in the value system of that organization. Me, I'm an external person. If it's not working for you, I'm able to, keep it moving. But if you're internal, it means that there's internal advocacy that you have to do to be able to change that. And this under resourcing, there's also lack of proper team structure. You have one person handling corporate communication. Look at all the things we've discussed now from module 1. How can one person do it? Right? But even the comms people on their own, they don't even know that you need a corporate communications manager. You need somebody, in fact, sometimes you need a writer, someone that is a specialist in writing, message crafting, someone that is the digital person, somebody that is stakeholder management focused. You need a well-resourced team and good structure. But if we don't know, we don't know. And that's fact that we don't know is affecting us. It's affecting our delivery, our output, but it's also affecting us in terms of our mental health and our professional output, and it's not good. Next thing is fragmented corporate culture and values. You can't say that you are best in class, but then your culture is so terrible, so bad. and something needs to be done about it, because communications does not communicate in a vacuum. And so if a poor culture already exists internally, there's little or nothing you can do. So sometimes say, oh, we have this perception problem, we want to change from this and that. And I say, you have a culture problem. Even if I help you develop a strategy around it, when people walk into your organization, they're still going to experience this thing that they've been complaining about, until something shifts within your culture, until something changes within your operations, or something improves in your products. You can't have a product and now communicate. No, it's not a fairy godmother wand. No, now product is bad, product is bad. So product team has to go back to the drawing board, make this product good. Then I will now come and communicate the good in the product. But if it's bad, it's bad. So that's the challenge. Tone deaf or carefree leaders that just say anything. Hi, the worst, absolute worst. They just talk. You give them talking point, they talk their own. That's very problematic. Demonstrating the ROI of communications, we still struggle, because in several ways, communications and what we do is still intangible. Sometimes it can feel very difficult to communicate in tangible terms, the return on investment. But I hope that the things that I have shown you now, and I have another video on measurements, will be able to show you that you can actually quantify some of these things that you're doing. And then frequency of industry or policy changes, again, depending on the sector that you work in. If policy is shifting, if there are changes within the industry, it affects business strategy, it affects your work as a communications professional. So how do you overcome these challenges? One, translate business strategy into communications priorities that leaders can see and support. So one of the things that I like to say is, if you know the top 2 or 3 priorities of your organization this year, can you begin to do things that delivers on at least even one of those priorities? They will begin to pay attention. What is the most important thing? We use the terminology low-hanging fruit. What can I quickly do that can show them that communications has a good role to play in achieving this thing, and then use that win and result to advocate for the things that I need? You have to be strategic about these things, right? Because you can't just change the status quo by talk. It has to be by results, by data, and by insights. Bring communication insights into leadership meetings. I'm not going to talk, because I've been talking about that. If you don't get this point now, I don't know what else to say again. Then advocate for the right team structure, again using data and benchmarking. See, it's not just to go, and it's just the way business works. It's don't even take it personal. If finance wants to go, and finance will come with their forecast, and they will say, okay, this is why they need it. We cannot just go with words. We have to speak the language of the business. We have to go with data. We have to say, if we have this structure now, so if your organization is benchmarking against Unilever and their budget is 0.1111% of Unilever's budget, they are joking now. So we have to be able to show them respectfully that if we want to replicate the results of Unilever, this is what Unilever is achieving. This is what is fueling their communications team. If we want to achieve this is what we need, so that they can see it visually. Let me tell you, data is powerful. Try it. Put these things, let it be visual, the bar charts, the trends, the everything. If you can't do it, find somebody who can do it. Say there's ChatGPT. Now that's how you should be using ChatGPT. Create all of these benchmarks and then send it to them, and then use it to negotiate. That's where you begin to overcome some of these challenges, because it's not everything that you'll be able to overcome. So like that one about carefree leader, now if the leader is carefree, I said they remove him. Now you just know that you are going to have to be dealing with this, and now hedge against his carefreeness, right? And that takes wisdom. Create a metrics and KPI dashboard and link communications outcomes to business results. I will show us a scoring sheet that I developed that you can implement with some metrics and all. But this would be very good to just have a dashboard where you have key metrics, so that when they come to you, you can easily show them that here, this is where we started from in terms of perception. But because of these things that we've done, perception has improved over a 6 months period. This, that. And then when you share about your social media following, social media metrics, you can tie it into key business results or outcomes, how this event led to this uptake, that purchase that led to, you should be able to do it, and you can actually do it. Prioritize professional development and growth. The truth is that some of these challenges is because of the things that we do not know. It's because of the gaps that we have. So if you prioritize your professional development and growth, and you're starting, as you're watching this video, I hope that you're already seeing areas that you can begin to change and what you can do differently. It would also help you to do better in your role. So I hope that was beneficial. That was a lot. But I really like to go into detail. I would like to simplify things because for me, I really want you to take out of this information that you can use now, right? So think through. So sit down like I did in module one. Sit down and really think about what do I need to begin to do differently. So you audit your own work within your organization or within your team. What have we done well? What's based on these best practices, based on these things that you have learned, what can we begin to do differently and what can I do right now? Some of it you may not be able to do now because of the particular constraints within your organization, but what steps can you begin to take right now? The final module in this comms course is on measurement. So how do you measure corporate communications impact? And I will be showing you how to do that. But I also have other videos on measurement that you would also be able to find useful. But we'll be discussing measurement for corporate communications as we wrap up this bite-sized comms course. If this course has been valuable for you, please drop a comment. Let me know, encourage me so that I will share. I really want to share more bite-sized comms courses, but you have to encourage me. You have to like, Adedoyin, this is making sense so that I will make more for you. But on a more serious note, please share it with as many people as possible. You know that Adedoyin's channel is a no gatekeeping zone. I don't believe in gatekeeping. If there's knowledge that I have that can make people's journeys easier, I would definitely share it. So please share it on your LinkedIn, social media channels, share it with your colleagues, let them also come and learn as well. And of course, if you have questions, you're like, I didn't understand this, you're talking too fast. I'm trying to slow down how I talk, but once I become passionate, I'm going to talk so fast. But if I said something and you're like, I don't know, can you explain this a bit? Can you look at this? Or you have a particular situation, just put it in the comments or send me a DM on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.